So I recently just picked up an Agfa Isolette #1. I guess that means it's the first one in the series, which is the first non-SLR camera or DSLR camera I've ever owned, or at least ever used or planned to use. And it needed a bit of work. There's a little bit of work to be done in terms of cleaning it up. It was in a bit of a mess. I'm glad to say it's all shiny and new again now. Well, far from new, but certainly shiny. And the other thing was there was a bit of dirt behind the front element. And when I say dirt, it was actually more like debris. Sadly, I don't have a picture of it, but it probably happened when I turned the focusing ring, because the focusing ring was tight. I mean, really, really, really jammed. So I ended up giving it a good turn, and it sort of freed up, but it was still pretty sticky. I also noticed the aperture blades were not really moving great either. So I decided to take the front element off. And I'm not that worried about doing things like this, but what was something unusual to me was the fact that, of course, I don't see through the lens anymore. So when I took the front element off, I had to remove the focusing ring, which has really no reference. So once I unscrewed the front element, I realized that I also lost exactly how it was calibrated back then, and I had to spend some time figuring out how to do that. But I was able to, and this video here shows kind of what I did to get this little camera working again. And I've just loaded some medium format 120 black and white film into it, and I'm looking forward to giving this thing a shot.
So first, I apologize that this is so shaky, but you'll see why in a second. This is a test pattern used to basically test the focus of a lens, right? To make sure that it's nice and sharp when it gets exposed. However, this is not an SLR camera, meaning we can't see through the lens to check if it's actually focused. We just gotta hope that it's focused when it hits the film. Well, that's not really good enough when you're spending a bunch of money on film, is it? So this is the plan. This focus pattern that we're looking at now is actually not on a TV. Well, it's on a TV, but you're not looking at it on the TV. In fact, you're looking at it here, which is actually in line with the film. So it's a piece of semi-transparent tape wrapped around, and the image is exposing directly onto where the film would be. And we can just basically confirm that that's sharp here, because when we look down here, the TV, which is 4 meters away, should be focused by the time it hits here. So all we have to do is measure the distance from the camera to here, and we'll know whether or not this is truly focused. This is a laser measurement tool that's measuring pretty much the distance from the film plane that's pretty much lined up to the television. And on the television here, if we zoom in, you'll see we have a piece of paper, well, plastic actually, under some paper tape, and it's measuring the distance from there to here. And that tiny little minuscule amount actually is the amount that this is the thickness of that piece of plastic that it's measuring against. So we can forgive that. So this is a slightly better view of what was going on here. So you'll see this is basically just a plastic film. And this film goes where the film would actually sit, the 120 film. And because it's not transparent, the image gets cast directly onto it, just like it would the film. And so basically, this is emulating the way the image would hit the film once it's come through the lens and exposed. So I had to hold open the shutter here using a bit of tape. Just had to tape this guy down, and I put it in bulb mode. And now what we have to do is, you'll notice here's the lens. This is set to where it was focused at 4 meters. So what we have to do is connect this ring and line it up directly with the little arrow here at the 4 meter mark, and then secure it. And then in theory, the camera should be focused to 4 meters in this position, and then the rest is obviously controlled by this once it's being turned. So basically this is just loose right now, right? So I'm going to put it to the 4 meter mark with this arrow here. And what we have to do now is, where this is, making sure not to apply any real pressure to the focusing ring or the focusing element of this lens, we need to attach these tiny little screws. And when I say they're tiny, I mean they're absolutely minute. So this is going to be a challenge, but it should be done in just a moment. So what I did here is I actually put the screws, there are 3 of them, through the thread, but they're not yet protruding out the other side, as you can see. They're simply just on the edge, and when it comes to fitting them onto the focusing element, then all I have to do is turn it just a tiny bit instead of trying to get it stuck and screw it at the same time, risking moving the focusing element entirely and screwing this whole thing up. So you see here, the 4 is now lined up here, and all I have to do is tighten these screws. Okay, so that's pretty much done. And you can see here now, as I turn it, the focus ring focuses to infinity. And if I keep turning, go the other way, it stops right here. So I would consider that to be a success. Obviously, we need to do is test this again and see that we get our test pattern focused at the right place. But yeah, so this was what, 4 meters we put this to when we set it up. So in theory, if I put this back on the tripod, and I should get basically the same reading, assuming I didn't move the tripod by mistake. Let's see. So I've put it back on the tripod, and now basically we should be able to see if this is focused correctly, that at 4, which is what it's set to now, that this should be in focus straight away. The other thing we need to make sure is that this is set to bulb, which it currently is. That means when we prepare the picture to be taken, now when we press down the shutter release button, it will stay open basically for as long as I hold it and then let go. So let's do it and test it. Bam, let's see. Are we focused? Yes, that looks perfect. Great.